I guess pro Matt Becker liked my live rocker head design because Epic Baits just came out with a signature series for Matt Becker. It's called like the scan head or something, and it takes in some of the same principles as my live rocker jig head. And it's not a huge deal, dude. You guys saw iCast. A lot of fishing stuff when it comes down to it, it's sort of reimaginations, tweaks, modifications, making something like a concept exactly how you want it. And I'm sure he wanted something to throw under his like brand that he's sponsored by. It makes total sense. And like I said, I kind of take it as a compliment because the jig works, dude, and it's one of the most unique minnow jig heads out there. But I'm sure Epic, Matt, and I think you guys will be pretty interested in what this video is about. What we're actually gonna do is me and you guys are gonna prototype a new version of the live rocker jig that accommodates one big problem, and it's a dong problem. We've talked about it before when it comes to minnow fishing. So hit that like and subscribe button. I'm literally gonna have you help me in this process to choose the final version of a new revision of the live rocker jig head. So what's the biggest flaw with these jig head minnows? And you know, Matt Becker's from Epic Baits is no exception. And the fact is like it's dong season, right? I've showed you guys we're catching them on a 6.5, 7-inch style minnow bait. Dude, big baits. And these jig heads are made in that one size fits all concept. Even the live rocker, it was designed for like a 3.5 to a 4-inch maybe bait. But a lot of these jig heads, they try to change the hook size. I think Matt's is available in like a 4/0, which is a great size, 4/0 or 5/0 for some of these big dong minnows. But you need to change other things, such as the keeper, as well as the way the jig balances, right? Because it's a different weighted bait, it's a longer bait, it's a bigger bait, and the way that head is going to balance when you start playing around with those features is going to change. So you got to kind of make accommodations. It's not a one size fits all. You need to kind of define two different categories to cover: your standard and your smaller minnow baits, and then your bigger dong baits. And that's exactly what I'm going to try to do with this design. So I came up with two different renditions. I'm going to show you the first one. It's basically a clone of the original. So we added a triple barb keeper. That's pretty much the biggest change. This is the 3/0 version. I'm not going to lie, I've been playing around with it a bit. I don't like the 3/0 size. It's too small for these bigger baits, but we kept that flat head design, the finned sort of like eye line tie to make that sort of shaking action, that sort of wobble that I've showed you guys that it does underwater when you just reel it. So pretty much the same clone design, but adding a bigger hook in that triple barb. The only problem that I found is though, even with that 3/0, which is the smaller end of the hooks that we tried, you can see it's a little less balanced, right? Usually when you put these on a loop knot like that, they should hold pretty much straight. This one's leaning back. I don't think that's a deal breaker because the fact is the baits that we're using are longer, right? I don't think it's a problem to have some of that weight dispersed a little further back through the big bait, but it might give it a little more of a hover feel, or it might actually cause a problem. I don't know. So the other one is a little modification, and this one has some more changes on the head design, but it's still the basic general principle. So with this one, and this is the 4/0 prototype, basically it's a double barbed keeper right there. That's probably the biggest change along with this. We changed the way the weight is set as well as where the line tie is placed. So you have a little more of a fin that sets the line tie a little bit further back. And what that ends up doing, as you can see, is it ends up balancing the jig head a little bit more, so you get that sort of parallel kind of sit when you're on that loop knot. I don't know which one I like. I want to get your feedback on both. What we're going to do is me and Swimsuit Girl are going to go offshore. We're going to test both of them. I think there's benefits and negatives to each, but we're going to test them. I'm going to bring you back kind of my findings, and then what I want you guys to do is let me know, like, which one do you think is more viable? What kind of changes or tweaks would you make? Or are we on the golden pathway to a juicy dong freaking jig head, right? So we're gonna head out, go pull on a few dongs and see if we can't test this thing out. Better one, guys. We're actually using that cool technique that I showed you where you kind of like do the burning of the bait, and that's one thing I wanted. Oh, that's a nice largemouth. Oh, that's a good largemouth. And what I wanted to see is if the bait will hold. A lot of times when you do that sort of stroking technique with these jig heads, that bait slides down and these fish become a lot less interested, but they freaking stuck with it. Lost my bait, but he stuck with it and closed the deal, so that's a good sign. So I got some conclusions for you guys, and I'm gonna tell you this right off the bat. I'm gonna tell you which one I liked, but I want you to let me know down in the comments, like, be critical. Let me know if I'm on the wrong track. Let me know if you have some different perspectives on stuff, because I wanna get this thing right before we go to production, because actually, it's gonna be at Bass Pro, dude. They're gonna carry the live rocker, this new version, and then the classic one from a couple years ago at Bass Pro, starting, I think, in like December or something like that. So pretty cool, right? So the first thing that I noticed, I was really concerned about going with the 2-barb keeper over the 3-barb, especially with these big minnow style kind of baits that we're using. And I was concerned about slippage. And I showed you guys that cool retrieve where you kind of like burn it in and catch them. So I tried doing that because I wanted to see if that 2-barb would have more slippage. The fact is, they both slipped equivalently, and they both actually held the bait pretty well. So there really didn't seem to be a difference between just going with that 2-barb style versus the 3-barb keeper when it came to slippage and that bait just riding down a little bit. Hook size, 4/0 is 100% the best, dude. I tried the 3/0. I actually lost a fish using the 3/0, and I think it's 100% because of the hook size. The 5/0 seems to be too big. It has too much bite and there's too much length. What I'm trying to do is find a balance between having enough bite so that you can catch spots, largemouth, smallmouth, whatever kind of species is out there, even if their mouths are a little smaller, but not take away from the action of the bait. It's a lot like what we talk about with the chatterbait, putting that fluke or that straight tail style bait on it. You want it to complement the action that's already built into the bait. I want this jig to complement the action that's already built into the minnow, maybe add a little bit to it, but not take away from it. And I think that bigger hook is really going to kind of inhibit some of that tail action as well as some of that rocking side to side. So 4/0 seems to be the juice, and I really like this hook that we're using. It's this VMC. It's a little bit stouter, but you can still use it. We're using spinning tackle, right? It's a little medium light rod, 7-foot, dude, 12-pound braid to 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. So not super stout, right? The hook still gets penetration, but literally I'm not afraid to hook like a 10, 9, 8-pounder on it, dude, and fight it with that spinning tackle. So the hook is juice, dude, especially if you're targeting big fish. The modified design with that 2-barb, that balance aspect where that hook isn't offset towards sort of like the back head or the first part of the head of the bait, but keeping it forward and keeping it balanced is the trick. That's sort of the principle of this. You want sort of that parallel sit with that loop knot, and the balancing and the reshaping of the head really does that. I kind of like it too because it sets back that hook eye, and I felt like I was able to kind of stall the bait a little bit more, almost more like a hover hook versus like a jig head, because that eye is set back on that weight. It sort of got redesigned and pushed back so that fin is a little bit longer, and to be honest, I was worried about it getting kind of hooked and caught on the line, but overall, I actually really like it, and it seems to sit a lot better when you actually put it on this bigger minnow. It kind of settles, that's a 3/16 size, it settles really nicely on that broader head that the big minnows have. Now, was there anything wrong with the original version cloned and upgraded? So one, we talked about, this has the smaller hook. I tested the 3/0 size, and then I tested the 5/0 size. You know, I don't like the smaller hook. The 5/0 was too big. The triple barb didn't seem to make as much of a difference as I thought it would. And then the weighting. Like I said, the weighting, having that weight set back a little bit, I felt like it made the minnow fall a little differently. Instead of kind of doing like, basically like a rolling kind of swoop, almost like a tube, I felt like it kind of made it fall a little like downwards and back, at least according to forward-facing sonar. They definitely responded to the other jig head with the double barb keeper and the reset eye a little bit better. But here's the deal. So you guys have seen both of them. You kind of have an idea of the design, the weight shift changes on one of them, as well as the hook size. I want your feedback. So this is going to be in Bass Pro. Like I said, it's kind of my design, so it kind of holds a special place in my heart. I want some feedback from you guys. I know you guys dangle a minnow. You fish in a bunch of different places. Let me know if this accommodates those bigger minnows. This is specifically made for maybe that 5.5 to kind of 7-inch and 8-inch range, those bigger dong style minnows, right? I always grin when I freaking say that. But dong fishing, right? And it really is specifically made for that that category, right? Because one size does not fit all when it comes to fishing tackle. So let me know if you guys got any criticisms, tweaks, or little changes that you'd recommend that I make. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, dude. It's been fun making this jig. And like I said, like even though they're kind of like making stuff like it, I think it's a compliment because it's one of the most unique like jig heads for this minnow fishing out there. And it does a lot of things, right? You can do the little shake, you can do the little swim with the little scurry on it, and it also acts as a Ned head so you can drop the fish as well. Hit that like and subscribe button for me. Make sure you put down in the comments box what you think. What's wrong with it? Tell me what's terribly wrong with it. And I will show you when we hit the final prototype and go to production with it. Later, my homies.